So I'm working here with basically a form of chalk, yep, digital, but it's exactly the same procedure whether it was physical or digital. This operates just exactly in the same way as I would use chalk. It's 3/4 opaque. Right now I'm working on a grey surface, which is kind of handy when you've got a lot of mid-range, and I'm just locating the big features in a basic standard kind of top-down way, moving all around the image and flexibly, flowingly finding my way around the big forms and then blocking them in tonally. Nothing I'm doing at this stage can't be undone with an eraser or with additional layers of chalk and fixative to hold it in place. The trick is not to get too fixated on any one area, and of course that's always the temptation. But you know from the basic theory of top-down thinking, top-down drawing, which you could also just as easily call priority drawing or big picture drawing, that it's just common sense to keep moving around and looking at the big relationships as much as you can, and not getting locked into fine articulated detail until the time comes. That time needs to be when you're really sure. So you'll notice that there's a fair bit of lineation in my mark making, a bit of visible hatching. For me that's not just a happenstance, that's actually a plus. And for me it's a way of helping to structure the planar aspects of the surfaces. So we're not just talking about whether this is mid-light, light, medium, dark, whatever tone, but we're also using the direction of the mark making to help structure the form. You'll see that little cursor change from time to time. That's simply because I'm adjusting its size. So I'm working with a smaller or bigger stylus, as it were, like a big fat broad piece of pastel or chalk on its side or on its point or somewhere in between. So you see I'm just blocking stuff in. Nothing is sacrosanct, nothing is committal. And at this stage I'm not drawing objects. I'm just drawing shapes, interesting shapes and structures and forms. Very big difference from seeing them as named, labelled objects. So what might look to you like maybe a bit scribbly, in a relatively practiced hand, this hatching is actually very deliberate in its form. The angle it's on, the width of the hatching. You'll notice that these aren't straight line hatchings, they're curves, and they actually stop and start kind of in the right place. They're tapered, they're fine at both ends and thick in the middle. And they describe the form as well as the tone. So far, no really big mistakes. But you always have to allow for the fact that there'll be a blunder somewhere, and you can have to get out the big eraser and knock out a big shape, put it back in the right place, in the right shape. So we're just slowly firming it up, crisping up a few edges. Didn't get that shadow right to begin with. So even that little bit of hatching there is running in both directions along the contour, the plane of the fabric that it's falling on. And you will notice, I'm sure, that I'm moving around the whole image all the time. And this is just crucial. And some of these marks are really fine and subtle and barely visible. And perhaps you'll also notice one thing that's maybe a bit unexpected, and that is that not at any point have I blended anything. There's no blending at all. I've not rubbed anything, I've not smeared anything, I've not softened anything. All of these bits you're seeing are just bits of colour, bits of tone going on in the right place, hopefully at the right tone and in the right degree of opacity or transparency. And that it's one thing to control in digital means. In physical means, that means to do with how much pressure you put on, how lightly or gingerly you apply the medium, and what you and at which stage you fix it with fixative to keep it down, or whether you make it solid. I wish someone had turned that radio down. Didn't think it was going to be quite so loud. You'll see a few jump cuts here when I've sped things up so to not bore you with every last detail. But this is about a 20-25 minute drawing cut down to about 10, I think it is. So no blending at all, except at the very end. If you're going to blend, leave it to the end. That's my motto, everything else being equal. And now you'll see I'll just blend a few edges at the very end and not before. But actually I thought it was just as good without the blending.